people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. A look at the current state at super flyweight as it pertains to the WBA title held by reigning champion Jasmine Artiga as of March of this year. It would appear that she's set on a collision course to face Australia's own Lynn Sandstorm, who holds a lesser version of that WBA title, the gold version of that title. Gold. It's only a matter of time before a fight between them is ordered, if such a fight should come into fruition. I like Jasmine Artiga to win. I like Jasmine Artiga to keep the WBA title against Lynn Sandstorm, who's about as experienced in the paid ranks as Jasmine is, but she's a lot more rough around the edges. There is a lot more work that needs doing, and I don't think it gets done in time for Lynn to take the WBA title away from Jasmine.
But that's not all.
Jasmine Artiga's headaches as a champion are just beginning, because there is a WBA eliminator on schedule set to go down later on this month on the 13th between America's own Cruz and Mexico's own Regina Chavez.
That's the same Regina Chavez that Jasmine won a controversial decision against for what was the vacant WBA title. I saw that fight, and Regina should have won. Moreover,
Jasmine shouldn't have even been the one in there. The one that should have been in there was Cruz, who was ranked ahead of Jasmine at the time. But for whatever reason, Jasmine was allowed to leapfrog ahead of Liana, who is now fighting in this eliminator.
So for Liana to get her crack at the apple, the crack that she was deprived of, she now has to make it past Regina. And from what I've seen of Regina, she's a handful. She's spicy.
So is Liana. Fiery personality, a very fiery fighter with no amateur experience, no amateur pedigree, but she does seem a natural. This fight with Regina would qualify as a litmus test.
Liana's unbeaten throughout 10 professional fights with 1 recorded knockout.
It's a legitimate argument that Regina would be the best fighter she would have fought so far. It's not a guarantee that Liana wins, but if she does, and does so in decisive fashion, that sends a strong message to the rest of the division, and more particularly to Jasmine Artiga.
Jasmine robbed her.
She robbed Regina of a decision that should have went to her, and she robbed Liana of a title shot that should have went to her.
Got nothing against Jasmine Artiga, but I've got to call a spade a spade.
So this WBA final eliminator is set to go down June 13th this month in Liana's native Philadelphia, PA, and I like Liana to win the fight, though I acknowledge it's not a guarantee that she does. And if she does, I figure it'll be by way of a points decision. Liana can punch, but she's no knockout merchant.
Not the strongest finisher, but quite the personality and an entertaining little fighter to watch. I like Cruz to win a points decision against Regina.
So we'll see if the prediction sticks.
I'm grateful for every victory and every defeat, both in the ring and in a life. I'm thankful that as my career comes to an end, I've gained clarity about the direction a person must take in order to achieve true victory, not just in the ring, but in overcoming the old self. Only then can one receive their true reward. And of course, I wouldn't be remiss not to thank you, my dear boxing fans around the world. You have always supported me with passion and lived through unforgettable fights alongside me for over a decade. I hope you continue to love and respect this sport, just a passionality, because the men who step in a ring risk their health for the sake of their families. Peace to all. May the Lord bless his people.
So, I'm sure most of you have heard by now that Vasyl Lomachenko has elected to walk away from the sport of boxing at 37 years old. he has decided to retire. Some believe that he is a first ballot Hall of Famer for having become a champion across 3 divisions. Maybe he is, but did he live up to the hype? Did he live up to expectations? I suppose that all hinges on what the expectations were. Whose expectations are we talking about? If we're talking about mine, I never expected Vasyl Lomachenko to be in the sport of boxing, in the paid ranks I should say, all that long, because after 2 Olympic cycles, that doesn't give you a whole lot of time to spend in the paid ranks. On top of that, I always felt that Vasyl Lomachenko, as dynamic a boxer as he was, he always had a younger man's style, and as Father Time begins to catch up to him, it'll be harder to stay in character. Remember that Vasyl Lomachenko is a very busy fighter within a round, and a busy fighter in a fight. Volume punching, cutting all of those angles and those pivots. It's quite taxing on a fighter's energy reserves, and it would become that much harder to be that fighter as time progresses. Is he a shoo-in to get into the Boxing Hall of Fame? Well, he might be, but not necessarily due to merit so much as sentimentality. That Vasyl Lomachenko's body of work in the paid ranks is not so deep. His resume's not that robust, but sentimentality, I think, sentimentality and familiarity will get him in. The champions that he beat, the guys that had belts that he took belts from, Roman, Rocky, Martinez, Jorge Linares, Jose Pedrazia. Those are the guys that he took belts from. Guys who were champions. He gets a lot of credit for the Gary Russell Jr. fight, but Gary Russell Jr. was not a champion at the time that they fought, and the title that they were fighting for was vacant. It was up for grabs. Those are his noteworthy scalps. There is also Guillermo Rigondeaux. There was a lot of buzz around that fight, but Guillermo was a smaller fighter moving up 2 weight classes, so you have to mitigate how much credit you give Loma for that fight. Carmel in motion. So I would not say that Vasyl Lomachenko has the deepest of resumes. I would not say that. I think it would help things along if he weren't robbed in the Heaven Haney fight. Carmel in motion. Because he got robbed in broad daylight in that fight. He got jobbed, man. It would have helped his body of work along if he would have been able to become undisputed champion. If they hadn't robbed him in the Devin Haney fight, then I think he would have had a stronger resume. But as it stands on paper, that is a fight that he lost. So there's a part of me that feels that Loma didn't really live up to the hype. He didn't live up to the expectations that were set before him. And I'll go as far as saying that Alexander Usyk, his countryman, Usyk is the fighter that they made Loma out to be. Usyk, at least so far, he won all of his big fights. Whereas Loma, we really can't say the same. He lost the Lopez fight, lost the Haney fight. I feel like Loma may have had more of a buzz in America than Usyk did, but Usyk is very much the fighter that they made Loma out to be. He achieved the goals that Loma set out to achieve. Undisputed, and he became undisputed more than once. Usyk won all of his big fights, all of his big moments. It's not to say that Loma wasn't a great fighter in his own right, but there was a lot of hype around this guy. There was a lot of buzz. And hindsight being 2020, I reiterate, I just think that Usyk turned out to be the fighter they told you Loma was. When I think about Loma's resume, it just feels like there's something missing. A big moment. Maybe if he would have secured the win with Lopez. Or maybe if he would have secured the win with Devin Haney, if they wouldn't have robbed him. Or what if he had fought Gervonta Davis?
Looking back, I think he might have beat him.
We know that Gervonta, the coward that he is, avoided that fight for a number of years, as far back as 2017, and only really took interest in fighting Loma when he heard that Loma was thinking about retiring. And based on how Gervonta just looked with Lamont Roach earlier this year, I happen to think if Loma would have decided to take him up on his offer, if Loma would have fought him, Loma would have still beat him at 37 years old.
Because Lamont Roach arguably beat him. And Lamont Roach is not, nor has he ever been, the same caliber of fighter as Vasyl Lomachenko.
If Lamont Roach could do that to you, just imagine what Loma would have did to you, even at 37. Lamont Roach doesn't all of a sudden become this amazing fighter because he took Gervonta by surprise. No, sir. Lamont is now who he always was, and he never was on the same level as a Vasyl Lomachenko. So if Loma would have took Gervonta, that same Gervonta up on his offer, I think Loma would have beat him. And that's the kind of victory that's missing from Loma's resume.
That's why it sort of feels incomplete, and that's why it sort of feels like Loma didn't live up to the hype. He didn't live up to the expectations set before him.
Now you're thinking to yourself, well, if you feel he would have won, why didn't he do it? Why didn't he take Gervonta Davis up on his offer? After the heartbreak in the Devin Haney fight, as far as Vasyl Lomachenko was concerned, he was done. He was retired. And he said it right after the George Kambosos fight, that he only did it because his father wanted him to. His father didn't want him to retire off a loss. One more fight. One more title.
He retires a champion.
Still a successful boxing career, even if it didn't live up to all the expectations. He still accomplished, still became a champion at 3 weights, still made a lot of money.
Congratulations to him. Best wishes in his retirement. And now the IBF title will likely go to Raymond Muratalla.
The lightweight division needs this. It needs a chance to move on from the previous cycle, as so many conversations at 135 pounds have all gone stale. Gervonta's not going to fight any of these people. He's not going to fight Shakur. He's not going to fight Keyshawn. He's not going to fight Muratalla.
He's not going to do none of that, and we done been over that a gajillion times. That conversation is stale.
He's another one who needs to wrap it up. He's another one I would like to see retire. Go do something else. Vasyl Lomachenko retiring frees up the red belt for another group of fighters to now fight for it. And that's good. Lightweight needs this.
For the IBF title and the other titles to be back in circulation and available to be fought for, to be unified, lightweight needs this.
Congratulations to Loma. Best wishes on his retirement.
Hey, let me just say this real quick. Who in the hell is scared of Devin Haney after that last performance? Shit, I come back at 147 or come back at 145. Shit. Scared of Devin Haney after that last performance? A man scared to get hit. That man don't want to be touched. That's easy work. Easy work. So with that being said, Teofimo Lopez, is it a duck? Oh, y'all can call it a duck. But yo, check this out. This could be a power play. This could be a power play. Here's why. Look, Teofimo Lopez, right? He wanted to fight Boots. Why did he want to fight Boots? Why did he want to fight Boots? Because there was more money on the table. That's why. However, Boots didn't take the bait. Boots didn't want the fight. Boots going to 54, that's my opinion. Or Boots might even want Norman Jr. I think this came out of his mouth. He wants Norman Jr. After Norman Jr. go to Japan and knock that guy out. Back to my point. So he was going to get paid more money. He was going to get a shot at the ring belt. He was, willing to go up to 47 for that. Absolutely. But it was definitely for more money. I heard it was astronomical money. So then Turkey says, nah, I want you to face Haney. That's who I want you to pay. But I'm going to pay you less money. I'm going to pay you 11, 9, whatever it is. I don't know. Nah, that's not enough for Teofimo Lopez. But this is probably his reasoning why. What Teofimo Lopez has done in this game, right? Short period of time. Called his shot, beat Lomachenko. Called his shot, beat Taylor. I keep going back to that. Yes. He feels he's done a lot in the sport, right? Then you take a look at Ryan Garcia. Social media darling. Millions of subscribers. My God. Millions of subs. Millions of viewership. You know, the guy is hot. He's a hot commodity. Ain't won a world championship at all. But he gets paid $20 million to face Rolly Romero. So Tio has done a lot more in the sport. And he feeling like, I deserve more money than that. So he knows that there's more money on the table. He understands that there's more money on the table. And so what he's doing is, I think, He's standing his ground.
Veteran fighter Timothy Bradley is of the opinion that this is just a power play to get at more money. And perhaps it is. It's not actually a bad take. That T.O.'s not really afraid of Devin Haney. Why would he be? We all saw what he looked like in his last fight. What this is a power play to get at more cash because he feels he deserves more. Though does he? Even with a power play, the ends have to justify the means. That if you do this and you don't get the additional money you were looking for,
Oh, well, then it's just a stone cold duck and you just priced yourself out.
just the act of wanting more doesn't mean you deserve it and doesn't mean you're worth it. You leave this situation, you go back to Top Rank and they do your next fight. What we're talking about is at the Hulu Theater in front of under 5,000 people. That's what you're worth.
That's what you're good for.
Even if $11 million is less than what you would have made for Boots, it's still more than what you're good for because you don't get back out there, not without Turkey, and generate $11 million. You don't do that, and we have the proof.
You don't get back out there and somebody pays you $11 million, Turkey's the only one offering you that kind of money. So that, if you turn it down,
Just as easily as this could be a power play from T.O., this could be T.O. pricing himself out, because there is that to consider. The fighters always want more. They always want in excess of what they're actually worth, and all T.O. is another overrated, overpaid American fighter making things difficult.
where they don't need to be.
No, the financial stuff is there. I'm not gonna sell my soul for $11 million. But yeah, just working through those things, brother. Just working through those things. I mean,
Oh, now he's selling his soul. Is that what it is? Fighting Devin Haney for $11 million, when I'm pretty sure you would have been happy to fight the Steve Claggets of the world for that same amount of money. So is this really about your soul? These guys always tend to get spiritual when they're screwing up.
Get ready for some scripture.
Spare me the nuances, because what we are spectators in what is this spectator sport, and it's not actually our job to explain away the fighters' actions. It's not even our job to sympathize. We don't have to care. All we know, and all we need to know, is you were offered a career-high purse to fight Devin Haney since the Boots fight ain't available, and you turned it down.
The number's confirmed because T.O. said it himself. We're talking about $11 million. Now, you walk away from this and you get back out there in the open market without Turkey. Is anybody out there offering you $11 million? We all know the answer.
Now for the saving grace, the silver lining. Turkey has a penchant for getting things done with fighters that are difficult to deal with. Fighters like Tyson Fury, who he finally convinced to fight Usyk not once but twice. So, as difficult as Teofimo is, and as difficult as he can make things, there is still a chance that the Haney fight happens.
Even with all of this and this contention that he doesn't have anything to worry about when it comes to Devin, I disagree on that too. As boring as Devin can be, stylistically, it's not a good fight for Teofimo.
As boring as Devin can be, and I don't like his base style, I don't like the way that he fights, but I have to acknowledge the reality that he could outpoint Teofimo in ho-hum fashion. So, I would not say that T.O. has nothing to worry about.
Worry is the reason he's asking for so much money for little old Devin Haney?
Bear in mind that the Haneys don't have all these hang-ups and all these aversions to a fight with Teofimo. They're willing to do it. They signed their end. They're waiting on him.
And that's because he's the one that's worried.